We are going to be making a digital art project using a program called Inkscape. And you can locate it by finding it in your list of programs or clicking on the search windows icon and typing in Inkscape. It may take a little while for it to open, but once it's loaded, at the top left-hand corner, you're going to see File. You're going to click on File and Open. You're looking for the photograph that you created of your drawing and your object. Okay, so here I found it. This is the one that I cropped, and I want to click Open. This pops up and it says Embed from File and Image Rendering None. So I click OK. Just leave the defaults the way they are. Click OK. And it will open, probably will open in a new window. And this may take a moment as well. And once it opens up, you want to make it full screen. And I would like to enlarge the image, zoom in just a little bit. You can use the touch screen, or down in this bottom right hand corner over here, there's a zoom percentage. So you can zoom that way as well. There's also a magnifying glass that you can use to zoom. So once I have this on my screen and I can see the entire image, I'm ready to begin. We're going to be using a paint bucket to fill in colors. But before you do that, you need to change the way this is. And I'll show you why. If I try to fill in one of these spaces with this bucket, it's not going to fill very well, and it's not going to fill completely. Okay, so I have a lot of little speckles that are going to cause me a lot of trouble. So what I want to do first is click on the arrow key at the top, and I'm going to click on the image, and you'll notice that means that it's selected. I want to then go to Path, Trace Bitmap. When I do that, this dialog box pops up and it says brightness cutoff should be the default. We're going to stick with brightness cutoff. I want to click on Live Preview, and my image should show up here. If your image doesn't show up there, then that means that you probably haven't selected the photo. Once it shows up, click OK. I now have a smaller box over here that is around just my drawing. I'm going to go ahead and close the Trace Bitmap dialog. And I want to click on my background picture, and I'm going to hit the delete key. And what I've done is I have a beautiful tracing of the image, and I didn't have to draw anything. It traced it for me. And now I have a clean background. So let me try my fill bucket again. And this time I see that when I fill, it fills relatively cleanly. You may notice, however, that there's a little white ridge around the edge. So I'm going to fix that by pressing the Control key and the 0. And it expands to the space. Sometimes if I'm zoomed in far enough, I might not have to expand it to the space. So let's see what this looks like. Still a little bit needs to expand, so I'm going to hit the Control and the 0. And I continue to do that, filling in my shapes until all of my spaces are filled except for the background. Now maybe I want to change this color. I'm going to expand it, but I'm going to change it to a golden yellow instead. So I click on this golden yellow color, and it's going to change the color for me. And I could use that color here, expand that a bit. I can zoom out so that I can see things a little better. and I can zoom in back and forth, getting it closer, farther away, depending on what it is I'm trying to see. And as I work, if I have tiny little spaces like down in here, I need to be careful that I'm filling in those spaces really carefully. If I accidentally hit a line or a space that I don't want, I hit Control Z and it undoes the problem. Control 0 to enlarge it. Control Z to undo. I may decide that that one needs to be much lighter because it's a reflection. And I may fill this one and decide that it needs to be darker because it's a shadow. I can also use other colors just by clicking again on a different color. And then it will change my color to that. If I click on a different color here, it's going to change that one. So I want to fill first and then change to the other color that I'm planning to use. And expanding as I go. If you forget to expand and you get up really close later on and it looks like you have white spaces, you can use the selection arrow and click on the space that you forgot to expand and go back and expand it. Okay, so once I've completely finished this, and I haven't completely finished it, but we'll say that I have, I'm going to do Control A, and it's going to select everything that's in the picture. And I want to group that all together as one piece. So I will click Control G to group. Now I can move the cup out of the way for a moment because I want to create a background. And what I'm going to do here is shrink that a little bit. I'm going to grab a square and draw it the size of the square that is on my page. And I want to click the arrow key, and here are different selection locations, and I want this one to be at the bottom, so I click the first one, lower it to the bottom. So now when I get ready to move my cup back over the top of it, it will go on top. There are a lot of things that you can do. You need to do something fun to your background. So you can create designs on it. I'm going to draw some little stars here. Change the star to a different color. And I can make a lot of stars by clicking Control D to duplicate it. Let's go this way. And I made another star. Control D, Control D, Control, and I can do it several times. If I move these now, and I can, actually there's a really cool thing that you can do is you can select all the stars by drawing a box around them and go to Object, Align and Distribute, and it's going to pop up a design, a little box here that distributes them. So what I want to do is I want to evenly space them. So I'm going to click here, and it gives me a whole row of stars, and then I want to make them all align together to one side. So now they're in a perfect row, and I can group those. Control G, group, and now I can duplicate my group maybe 4 times, 5 times, and now I want to take and select them again And I'm going to align them this direction. Yep. D, Control D, Control D. Now I'm going to drag a box around the stars, and I'm going to align them. I'm going to select them. And then I want to align them horizontally, and then with the top level. And now I have a pattern on my page of stars in the background. You'll notice if I try to move this over, my stars are in front, so I need to move them all to the bottom level. Actually, move them down a level. Click on my green and move it to the bottom. And now, when I move my cup over the top of it, I have a design in the background. You could also do other things if you wanted to. And you can see where I haven't filled in my colored space, the stars show through. Wherever it's white here. If I want it to remain white, I need to use the color white with my fill bucket. So maybe you decide you want to do something a little different here. Another option is to create, maybe I want to do something with this background. I want to go back to my fill, and right here I can double click on this and it'll open up this dialog. I want to use a linear gradient, okay? And there's a little gradient tool here, and if you can't see it, there's a double arrow there that you'll be able to find it on your device. So I'm going to click on the gradient fill tool, and I'll get a line that goes across. So I am going to click on the last dot over here, and I'm going to pick one of these colors down here, and it's made a different style of gradient. I'm going to go from top to bottom, so I'm going to move my square to there. You could also go diagonally if you wanted to, but I'm going to go top to bottom. You can even change it. I can double click right in the middle of the line and then click on maybe this gold color. And I have even more colors to choose from. I mean, I can continue to do that, change things a little here, add the red there, do more lines right here, add the green, and create kind of a striped ombre. So if I click now on my cup, I can bring it over into that space. After I filled the cup and have completed that, I need to add a shadow. So I'm going to choose my oval, and I want to select it, and I'm going to move it down a layer. Now my shadow is, you'll notice my shadow is a green color. I want it to be a gray, middle gray, a little darker gray. I want to, over here you'll see this series of lines, which is the RGB scale. The bottom one, change it to about halfway across the alpha opacity, and then you want to blur this. So I'm going to click here to blur it out just a little bit so it makes kind of a shadow on the ground. I could also choose to make that a deeper red if I decided I wanted it to be instead of the gray color, which actually works really well too. Whatever color you have down here, it works to make it just a little darker shade of that. So you're going to add a title that says Art History. So it's the cover of your book. You're making a little book, and I want you to click here. You can choose any font, but if you just type it in first, Art History. You can use all caps if you want. You can make it a larger size. I'm going to make it about a 72. Let's see, that looks about right. I can use my selection key and move it down. I can also change the color of it. I can make it a color that matches the bottom, and if you notice when I click on the gradient, I can choose the gradient that I used before. If I think that that's not going to work very well because it doesn't show up, I can add a line. So if I hold my shift key down and then click on black, it outlines the letters. I can also go to stroke style over here and make the line a little thicker by making it just a little bigger number so it kind of matches the cup. And now it says Art History, and there we go. The final step is to save your file, and you need to save it 2 different ways, especially for this project. The first thing is you want to be on the selection arrow at the top left hand corner, and you click Control A, and that will select everything. And then you're going to say File, Save As, and you want to find a location. Your camera roll is a good place to put it, and name it Popart and click Save. You can see that I've done Popart several times, so I'm going to do it as Popart 3 and save. Now, the next thing that you need to do is you need to export this. An SVG file, which is the file format for Inkscape, does not show up in any other program. But we need that in case you need to go back and make changes. But we also need it exported so that it can be printed. So you want to do this. Leave it selected, go to File, Export PNG, and over here on the right hand side it says Export As. We're going to click on that. And now you can find where you want to export it to. I would say put it in the G drive because it's a lot easier to import it to Canvas. And you can put it inside of a folder. I have a Google Photos folder, or just in Google Drive. You want to change the name to Popart and click Save. Now it's not saved yet, so mine shows here that it's in my Google Drive, Popart, and I've made it Popart 3 because I have several of those. But now I have to click the export with the green check mark. Click Export, and now it is saved.